Noble ones, ready yourselves, as we are about to go back in time, 2,000 years.
In my heart and soul, waiting for the day when we will be together again. Carry me to my love, o'er the sea to the clouds above, o'er the sea to the clouds above.
Here you are, in front of the eternal city, Roma. You would find alleys, streets, squares, public buildings, temples, theatres, circuses, warehouses, barracks, parks, gardens, schools, gyms, public baths, hot springs, porches. And yet, although we have mentioned so many different buildings, we haven't mentioned the most important buildings, the houses. Now, I have recently made a video about the origins of Rome, link in the description below, where I mentioned a little bit about the evolution of Rome, and I talked about the houses of the poor, the council houses that in Latin you call insula, which were, as I said on that video, buildings which would eventually with time start to be developed on several floors because of the fact that there wasn't a lot of space in Rome for everybody, and therefore 3-floor buildings to accommodate a ever-growing population in a city which at the time would cover, roughly speaking, 1,280 square meters. Yet there is another kind of house which we will be focusing on today, the domus. So what is a domus, and what's the difference between a domus and a normal insula? Well, you see, let's say that you have just reached Rome, Imperial Rome, and you have some contacts there, you have some friends. They are, in fact, Roman citizens, but they're not just any citizen. They are members of a wealthy family, and yet their house is not one of those insula with many different floors, but it's one big building which accommodates many different kinds of rooms, which is in fact what we call a domus. Now, the first thing you will see is the entrance, the door, as you are invited by this family to join them for prandium, lunch. So the first thing you find in front of you is the ostium. That's the main door, or most of the times the only door, at least until imperial times. It's the only door to the home, and basically it would be very, very decorated because it was basically the only thing you could see about the home from the outside, because a lot of Roman homes, the domus, would be very decorated in the inside. So the door, the ostium, was there to show off the wealth of the family. Now, as you open this studded hardwood door, you would find on both sides perhaps some columns and an architrave on top of it. And there you are, walking through the vestibulum. The vestibulum is the corridor that will lead you to the actual real entrance of the home, which is called fauces. Now, one thing you need to understand about the vestibulum is that it would be also very decorated, but Roman domus did not have windows, so occasionally they had very little ones, but you know, the Roman wealthy citizens were quite afraid of thieves breaking in, and they didn't want people to be able to peek inside the home, so most Roman domus would actually have no windows at all. So what that meant is that, of course, this vestibulum would be rather dark, so you had to use candlelight or other forms of illumination to go through it. Sometimes though, when they were expecting guests, just like in this time, in this situation, because they are expecting you, they might have placed some torches on the sides of the walls for you to see and behold all the decorations on the walls and the ceiling. As you continue walking through the vestibulum, you reach the fauces that we said is the real entrance, and you have in front of you another wooden door, this time decorated differently. You find some wolf heads of bronze with an actual ring that is used to knock. And as they open that door, you find yourself in the atrium. Well, the atrium is basically an inner garden within the Roman Domus, and it has many functions. So the first thing you need to keep in mind is that all the rest of the homes, all the other rooms, all the other spaces in the room will be developed around the atrium. And of course, having said that a Roman domus would not have windows, then you would have to use the atrium to gain light, the skylight. This was done through the compluvium, a big hole. Most of the times it would have a square shape or rectangular shape on the ceiling through which the light would come through. Now, as you walk through the atrium and you are waiting for the Roman family to greet you, you notice a little recess on one of the walls. That, my friend, is the lararium. Now, the lararium was the area dedicated to the lari, the spirits who were supposed to protect the spirits of the ancestors that the Romans would worship, and they were supposed to protect the family. And also you find some little statues of the gods, for example, Minerva. This is the area where the Roman family members would worship the gods and would give offerings to the gods to make sure that the family would always be blessed and protected. Now, as you keep on walking through the atrium, you find yourself in the living room, which in Latin is called tablinum, because it has a table, a stone table most of the times in the center, and also has a big chair, sometimes made of whisker, because yes, the Romans did use that, which belonged to the head of the family. This was the area also where the head of the family, the father in the family, would sometimes have business or could have also political meetings. Now, another important room, and sometimes set of room, is the triclinium. Now, that is the dining area, but you need to consider this. As you walk through the domus, you will notice that there is one thing missing, particularly if you compare it with modern day houses, and that is furniture. Well, furniture was very limited. The Romans did not use many different things like a lot of tables and chairs and stools. No, you wouldn't really find many of those. Occasionally a few, but as you went to the dining room, you would not find a table and a whole set of chairs. No, you would find the beds where the Romans would lay to have their meals. Now, the reason why in some of these houses there was more than one triclinium is because depending on the season and depending how hot or how cold it was, and then they could have chosen one or the other, because depending on the location of the home, you might find one of the two dining room to be more fresh or to be fresher than the other. But on the sides, you also find the cubicula, and in front of this little cubiculum, you see the father and the mother coming out, the two owners of the house coming to greet you. So what is a cubiculum? A cubiculum is a small bedroom. These were dark little rooms. But what's most interesting about these rooms are two details. The first one is that in Roman times there were no double beds. Okay, so both the husband and the wife would not sleep together. They would sleep in separate beds. And yet, again, the walls would be decorated. An extremely wealthy family would have had a lot of frescoes, but if it wasn't the case, then at least decorated with colored plaster. The room would be lit by an oil lamp, and as the night would come, the servants would go in and check to see if their masters had fallen asleep, in which case their duty would be to just switch off the lamps. Now, there are other rooms in the home. You would find, for example, the Culina, which was the kitchen. What's interesting about the Culina is that, differently from medieval times, they would be very, very small, and it would be the darkest room in the home. And what about the bathroom? Oh yes, they did have bathrooms, and they also managed to keep them warm. There was a sort of system of central heating using hot water, of course. These would be called balneum, and you would definitely be more than welcome to take your clothes off and enjoy yourself a little bit with the nice hot water. But you are an important guest, my friend, so they are not gonna let you leave without having a look and showing off, mind you, at the same time, and having a look at the most important, most beautiful area of the house, the peristylium. Not all Roman houses had one. What a peristylium is that it's another inner garden to which a second area of the home would be based around. But differently from the atrium, which was in Roman way, built in the Roman way, the peristylium was based on Greek architecture. So what you will find in one of these would be a beautiful garden, all surrounded by many columns, perhaps in the Corinthian styles. In the middle, you would find fruit trees, statues, fountains, and maybe even a piscinula, or a small pool. So what would they do here? Well, this is the area you use when you really want to show off, but sometimes when you had your prandium in the triclinium, so your lunch, and perhaps it was a hot day, then you would have your coena, your dinner, just around the piscinula, the pool, to get some nice fresh air. Now sometimes some of these pools will be filled with fish, but other Romans didn't, because they did want occasionally to have a bath. But you do have to consider that Roman women did not like the idea of getting a tan, so they would never do that under the sunlight. What really stood out for you is that both the atrium and the peristylium were close, but they were separated by what is called an andron. Now, what's beautiful about these places is that sometimes they would not separate the two areas with a wall or with a door, but they would use curtains. And the reason for this is that during summer or on a hot day, they could actually open these curtains, leave them open, as to give a sort of vanishing from one area to the other, a artistic perspective that would make the area even more charming. On the sides of the atrium we find the cella servorum. That's where the servants of the house would sleep. But no, they are not going to show you these. You are an important guest, my friend, and this is no ordinary family. We are inside the house, the domus of a member of the Cornelia family. And yes, they do have something else to show off. You will in fact be brought to the biblioteca. That's the area where the library is, all the possessions, all the knowledge, secular knowledge that is there for you to read, if you can read Latin, that is. But you are in Italy after all. The weather is nice, and they take you to the solarium. That's the terrace. Not all Roman houses did have one, but this family certainly didn't mind expenses. If we were in Republican time, this would be it, but we are not. We are in Imperial time, so we do have a posticum. What a posticum is, it's another door, a secondary door, which you find at the back of the home, of the domus, and it was used by servants every time they would need to go out or come in, and sometimes also to get supplies for the home, as not to interrupt and not to disrupt the harmony of the front entrance. To finish it off, most Roman homes would have a backyard called hortus. Ah, my dear noble ones, my bones ache for Rome, but it was a pleasure to have you here today. I hope to see you again tomorrow for my next daily upload, and please let me know if you liked this video, and if you did, please consider giving me a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel for more content from the Metatron, and remember to share this video with your friends, family, and why not, foe. May the gods be with you, and remember, the Metatron has spread his wings. Valete!